This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Welcome back to Killer Innovations. This is your host, Phil McKinney. I have been on the road for the last couple of weeks. We had a couple of shows to put into the can. I was off on vacation. People have been asking me about the vacation time. It was great, albeit not to go to Florida in the middle of a hurricane. I don't think I would recommend that. I was actually down there to do a speech. If you follow over on the blog over at philmckinney.com, you see my speaking schedule. I was in Florida for the speaking engagement, but that speaking engagement did get canceled because of the hurricane, but still had a great time. Do need to take breaks every once in a while. Got to recharge the brain here a little bit, and come back ready to go. So again, as we are every show where we are doing the show live, we are in the studio. You can join us over on Facebook, and you can also join us over on Zoom, zoom.us, video conferencing system. Zoom is a technology sponsor of the show. So just go over to killerinnovations.com/live each week, and you can join in. You can ask your questions, and you can ask questions over on Facebook. We'll take those questions either live during the show, or we will answer those during the commercial breaks, depending on the questions you want to ask. So use that as your opportunity to get the questions that you've got burning that you want to get answered. That's your best chance to get them asked. This week, we do not have a guest. It's me in the studio by myself. Actually, I'm not by myself. We do have some the people here in the studio today, but they just get to sit here and watch me do my Sunday thing. But this week, I'm responding to a question that I have gotten here recently from a couple different people who are in different roles within their organization and looking for advice on what are the skills needed to really step into kind of that executive level role. So these are individuals who might be, director levels, maybe vice president levels, and they're looking to step into the C-suite, whether that be a chief information officer, chief technology officer, CEO role. Now that's a pretty broad question, and one is fairly hard to answer in a broad sense. So what I'm going to do today is I'm actually going to focus in on giving you an answer just for one of those roles, which would be the chief technology officer. Now, if you're a longtime listener to the show, you know that I was CTO at Hewlett-Packard. Retired at the December of 11, but that's probably the role that I've had that at a C level at that time when I retired. HP was the largest technology company in the world, 120 billion in revenue, $52 billion supply chain, about $4 billion in research and development expense. So it's the one I'm going to use as the example. And let me give you a little bit of context of how I even got into that role, because I'd never really had set my vision on becoming a CTO. My background is a software engineer, doing early stage innovation work, developing concepts, prototypes, and then doing product launches. And typically I'm the kind of the build guy. I'm not the operate guy. I'm the guy that comes up with the ideas and builds the first version of the product. But I'm not the guy that's going to run the factory and produce 10 million copies of something. I'm off onto wanting to create the next thing. That's just who I am and what I like to do and what I think I'm good at. So at HP, I originally joined HP for 1 year, came in to help HP post the Compaq merger at the request of Carly and Ann Livermore and a bunch of the other executives at HP, to come in and spend 1 year. I originally, years back, had run a consulting practice at Computer Sciences Corporation, and they were wanting to kind of stitch together a bunch of products and services into a new services organization. So I was, quote, retired. That was my first retirement. Came back, joined HP, which I thought was going to be for a year. But once I get inside of HP, I just fell in love with the company. I fell in love with the people. I fell in love with its history. And after about a year and a half or so, I got moved over to become the chief technology officer for what was called network and service provider business, which was the telecom, wireless, mobile studios like Warner Brothers, Sony, DreamWorks, all the wireless industry around the world, and did that for about another year or so. And then I got promoted to be CTO for HP. And when I say CTO for HP, I had about 40 billion of the 120 billion of HP's revenue fell into my product line. And I did that for the rest of my career until I retired. Now, when I sit back and I look at the skill sets, and I'm going to put these into two buckets. The skill sets that I brought into this opportunity, and then skill sets that I wish I had before I started the opportunity. And let's face it, you're never going to have 100% of the skill sets for any job that you really have your eyes set on. And a CTO is a unique role. It's a unique role at HP, but it's a unique role across all organizations. Some people think of the CTO potentially as a figurehead. You don't really do anything. You do a lot of talking, but you really aren't driving impact. And if that's a CTO role that you're involved in, that's not the typical CTO role. If you truly are going to be the CTO within a chief technology officer within an organization, whether that's a small 10-person company or a company like HP, when I left, we had 240,000 employees. You have to really define that role from the standpoint of what it is that you're going to do from an impact perspective. But to understand that, let me walk through. I've laid out 9 skills that I think you need to have if you really want to become a world-class CTO. Now, I'm not saying I was a world-class CTO. I had a good career run at HP. Hindsight's 2020. There's a lot of things that I would do differently now than I would have done in the past. But that is, it is what it is. But now that I've been gone for 4 years and I look back, if I were to mentor you wanted to get into a CTO role or a C-level role at a large organization, these 9 skills are ones that I think you need to have in place. And number 1 is never stop building your network. Now that's interesting because it's not talking about technology or innovation or any of those roles. The key when you get into any kind of a C-level role is a lot of it's based on the strength of your network. Who you know, who can you tap into for input, for feedback, for advice, who can potentially be an executive at another company that when you make it to a C-level role that you can partner with. Never stop building your network. And that's not just within the company that you're in. It's reaching much more broadly to customers, vendors, suppliers, completely different companies. And then once you built that network, maintain the network. I have a policy where I will go through my entire network list on LinkedIn and my contact database, and I'll randomly pick people that I'll just pick up and schedule a phone call or get a Skype call with them. Or if I'm going into traveling and I'm going to be in the area, maybe invite them to dinner. If you're the proactive side of reaching out and building and nurturing that network, it comes back 10 times value back to you. I've had contacts and relationships that I built up, even interns that I had worked for me 20, 25 years ago, stayed in contact with them, answered their phone calls. And then when I needed help or needed advice or needed to reach into their organization where they now have been very successful, huge value. So job 1, never stop building your network. It is absolutely critical. The second one is communication skills. You have to have the ability to speak, to inspire, to motivate. You have to be comfortable speaking in front of large groups. If you're not comfortable with this, go out to a Toastmasters club. Get out there and learn and get comfortable with it. Get comfortable with talking to groups. Become an excellent active listener. Not just sitting there figuring out what you're going to say is your next talking point. Actively listen, feed it back to the people that you're engaged with. And don't be a know-it-all when it comes to the communications. Don't try to prove you're the smartest person in the world. I could tell you all kinds of stories. When I was CTO at HP, where other CTOs from other companies were coming in for meetings, and what I would call the dogs sniffing each other. All the CTOs are trying to prove who's the smartest person at any given time in the room. You're trying to prove you're the smartest person. Nobody wins in that game. Humility is key. So learn to balance that ego and be humble. But communication skills is the one skill that I find is probably the most efficient, and a lot of people who want to step into the executive suite, you have to be willing and being ready to do that. So we're going to take a quick commercial break here. We've covered 2 of the 9 skills that I think are critical if you want to become a world-class CTO, but this also applies to not only the CTO role, but to all of the any C-level role across the organization. So stay tuned. We're going to come back. We're going to run through the other 7, share personal stories of where I did it pretty good and where I didn't do it so well. So stay tuned. We'll be right back after this quick commercial break. You're listening to Killer Innovations on the BizTalk Radio Network.
BizTalkRadio.com.
This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Welcome back to Killer Innovations. This is your host, Phil McKinney. This week, we're talking about the skills needed to be a world-class executive. We're going to focus in talking specifically as around the Chief Technology Officer, a role that I had for 10 years or 8 years, I guess, really, at Hewlett-Packard. But it applies to whatever your executive vision, dreams, what you want to achieve. So whether that's a CEO, a Chief Operating Officer, CFO, Chief Innovation Officer, Chief Information Officer, most of these skills will apply. What we covered in the first segment was skill number 1, which is never stop building your network. Your network is one of your most valuable personal assets that you can create. It's that ability to put your finger on and being able to reach out and connect with the right people. These are people that you build a relationship with and know. Secondarily, then, is also communication skills. You have to be able to communicate effectively, communicate in front of groups, motivate teams. Particularly in the role of a CTO, you have to be able to talk tech and executive at the same time. You can't be deep technologist and talk over the heads of the other executives that are inside your organization, and particularly the CEO or your board. You have to be able to translate. You have to be able to talk both tech and executive. So what is skill number 3? Skill number 3 is build your personal brand. Now, most times, particularly if you're coming from an engineering background, you're just working on your projects, you're letting your projects go. But we don't spend or don't think about it from the context of building a personal brand, a level of expertise that gets attached to you. Now, because a lot of engineers don't get into the whole chest thumping thing. But your personal brand is increasingly important. Now, for me personally, the fact that I had a little bit of a personal brand before being appointed CTO at HP played a role. So, for instance, this podcast has been going on for 12. We're in season 12 now of this show. Started before I became CTO at HP, but had built up a following in that case. I've had my blog since 1996. Yes, that's true. I've had my blog since 1996. And so I had followers on my blog, and it's putting out there an opinion, your view, your thoughts, getting a following, being viewed as a thought leader. You need to build that personal brand. So if you don't have one, fire up a blog, treat it as your technical journal, speak at conferences, go participate in unconferences, where you're at a conference and it's kind of a birds of a feather, propose a topic and lead it, give a meetup presentation. Volunteer at your company to host customers and tours and get in front of people to share your expertise and practice your speaking skills. Contribute to open source projects, even if they're not related. If you're a technologist, you're a software engineer, contribute your skills to either creating sites for nonprofits or doing a contribution to open source projects. Mentor somebody. Find a new college grad or an intern in your organization and mentor them. Build that personal brand. Get known for being more than just a very good technologist. I've shared in the past on this show, my early mentor, Bob Davis, basically told me right out of the gate, he says, you can be a really good software engineer, but if you really want to be a world-class executive, you've got to know the business. In his case, he moved me around. I was 6 months in technology. I was 6 months in sales. I was 6 months in finance. I was 6 months in IT, 6 months in marketing. I did basically every role, and it was a fairly large company. But that was probably the best experience that I ever had. It allowed me to build up my network, but it also allowed me to have that broader experience. Skill number 4 is the technical and business leadership. You can't be just a technologist. You also have to have that business expertise. Just as I was sharing about Bob Davis, saying that I needed to have a broader expertise, not just technology, but also on the business side. You have to have both sides of that. Now, many just don't realize how important the role of the CTO is. The CTO is the most important bridge between the business and the technology. And therefore, the CTO is not a pure technical role. In fact, you don't have to be an expert in every technology area within your organization. My background was software engineering. I used to be heavy duty, heads down, writing C code, C++ code, doing a lot of embedded system work, video imagery work, etc. But to be quite honest, I probably haven't really sat down seriously and written code as a job requirement in 15 or 20 years. But I've kept up on it. But from a CTO role, it's not that you have to know the deep technology. You have to lead technology, but understand how to integrate that with the business side of it. So how do you do that? How do you show that? Well, one is have a portfolio of highly successful technology and products under your belt. Show a track record of your past of doing products. In my case, I'd been in positions where I'd created a number of products that had gone on to win Product of the Year awards, leading magazines, trade show awards, products, etc. Build up that portfolio. Have that and then collect that all as social proof. Articles about your products, articles on the awards that you've won, those kinds of things. The other is do a side project. Don't ask for budget. Find somebody in your organization that is struggling and could really benefit from having a technical solution, and just do it for them. Don't ask, just do it for them. You do that, and in that case, they owe you. You've delivered something, you didn't go to them and say, well, I can do that, but you got to pay, you need to contribute $50,000 to the budget for me to free up my time. Just go do it. Do these side projects where you're leveraging your expertise, solving a major problem for maybe another department, another executive within your organization, and then they owe you one. They will literally be in that position where they owe you later on in life. So this technical and business leadership, having both sides. In some cases, you may actually want to go work on the business side, work in a product group, be a product manager, understand that product side and be on the technical side, depending on how your organization is structured. Move around the organization. If you don't know something, a part of the organization, go learn it. So you need to be both a technical and a business leader. This also plays out if you want to be a CEO. I would argue you understand the business side, you need to understand the technical side. So with that, we're going to take another quick commercial break here. When we come back, we're going to pick up on skill number 5. We're talking about the 9 skills that I think you need to be a world-class CTO. But again, this applies not just to chief technology officers, but everything from CEOs all the way down. So we'll be right back after this quick commercial break. If you've got questions, hop on over to Facebook. You can post them there. You can drop them an email to phil@killinnovations.com. You're listening to Kill Innovations on the BizTalk Radio Network.
U2 America TV.
Talkradio.com.
This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Welcome back to Killer Innovations. I'm your host, Phil McKinney. This week, we're talking about what are the 9 skills you need to become a world-class CTO. Now, however, this is not confined to being just if you want to be a chief technology officer. Think of this as really a discussion around what are the skills needed to be a chief executive, whether that be the CEO, the chief financial officer, the chief executive officer, the chief information officer. These are skills that are universal, albeit the largest chunk of my more recent career was 10 years at HP, 8 of those years as the chief technology officer at HP. So I'm speaking from that experience. I've been a CEO now at an organization of about 180 employees for the last 4 years or so. So I have that as kind of a comparison, but it's a little hard of a comparison when you're going from a company that's generating 120 billion in revenue, of which I had responsibility for about 40 billion of that, and $4 billion of R&D spend, and 400 PhD researchers in HP labs, and 47,000 engineers on the engineering side of an organization, to 180. But I can attest that these skills apply whether you're talking about the world's largest technology company down to one of the smaller innovation R&D labs that exist. So let's pick up where we were. We were talking about before, talking about the areas around building a personal brand, which was skill number 3. Skill number 4 was technical and business leadership. Skill number 5, team building. When you want to move into an executive level rank, when you're looking to become a CEO or CTO, or you're being recruited, you want to have teams that you can tap into, that you can take advantage of, people that you have relationship with, and that who you trust. If you're looking to potentially get promoted within the organization you're at, start building that team now. Don't wait until you get that promotion. One, your ability to get promoted is based on the quality of the team you build underneath you. And believe me, that team pays back in dividends over the long haul. Even when you go to a new organization, the ability to bring that team or portions of that team with you. So for instance, when I retired from Hewlett-Packard and then got persuaded not to retire, but instead to come to Cable Labs, where I'm the CEO now, right out of the gate, I brought a guy that had worked for me 15 years ago in my strategy department to actually come in and work side by side with me to build the 100-day plan at Cable Labs, Mark Vericcioni. And Mark and I've known each other for a very, very long time. I trust him implicitly. You know, the one way you always test if you really trust somebody, would you hand him your checkbook and would you hand him your grandkids? And in both cases, it's yes with Mark. So somebody that I just absolutely trust implicitly. Likewise at HP, I'd already been in HP for 2 or 3 years, had built up a network, had built up resourcing, and brought portions of that team with me when I stepped into the CTO role. Build your team now. Learn to recruit. It's absolutely one of the most critical skills you can have stepping into the executive suite, is the ability to identify the best talent, recruit that talent. Once you've recruited them, you have to learn to motivate and lead that resource. It isn't, you recruit them, stick them in an office, and leave them alone. People are not mushrooms. They need to be nurtured. They need to be, you don't stick them in, turn the lights off, stick them in a dark room. You've got to motivate. You got to lead. You also have to learn how to mentor and coach. You have to be able to help people progress their careers, which is important from that standpoint. Everybody has career motivation from that standpoint of what they're going to do with their success. So if you help people with their careers, that plays back in the form of helping you with your career. So you want to make that investment and learn how to empathize. And you have to understand people. You have to understand what motivates people. And you have to have empathy. Now, if my wife were here in the studio and we asked her this question about my level of empathy, I'd probably get a negative score. My wife reminds me that if we hadn't met at 14 and started dating at 17, I would probably be the kid in the basement still playing computer games at the age of 55. So I don't, empathy is not something that comes overly naturally to me. I've had to learn empathy over time, but I have found that it is a skill that you have to really bring along teams, understand how people are motivated, what makes them successful, what motivates them from the standpoint. Not everybody's money oriented. There's a lot of different motivations. You have to have that empathy. You just have to learn how to empathize. And that plays a key role in building teams, assembling teams, motivating teams. And a team is really about getting that work product out that is 2x, 3x, 10x more than any one individual the team could do on their own. So team building, don't wait. You want to build that team long before you ever even are looking to get into the C-suite. Skill number 6, create exciting side projects. We all think about the projects or products that you work on, and we talked earlier before about, creating that portfolio of products that you've done in the past. But in this case, you want to have those side projects. These are projects that may or may not have anything related to your work, but you want to have something on the outside that gives you the ability to kind of exhibit or show the work that you are able to do in areas that can be aligned with where your long-term objective is. So that could be, if you're a software engineer contributing to open source projects that are outside of your industry. So you get known in the open source community as being, an expert in a certain area, or having the ability to contribute critical code or fixes, something along those lines. It needs to create some kind of a wow. It needs to be something that's pretty unique, pretty different. In my case, my side projects that I've done have all been related really to the blog and the podcast. The blog started a long time ago. The podcast started off as a fluke. We're now in the 12th season. It's a nationally syndicated radio show. We have thousands and thousands of followers who connect with us on a weekly basis. We've got a large archive, and the podcast then ultimately led to the book. My agent, Mark Gerald, followed the podcast, liked it, reached out to me. He put together a team to actually help me put together the book proposal. 9 publishers bid on it. We got a nice advance to write the book. Book's done pretty well. And all of that came from a side project, nothing related to my job, but something that has helped both with the side project and helped with the personal brand. So you want to create some form of exciting side projects, things that kind of highlight your skill, highlight your creativity, highlight something outside that can then kind of reinforce the uniqueness that you would bring to the position. There's a friend of mine who's still at HP who is a sales guy in the Midwest. Used to go out, he'd call me out to do customer visits with him, with big clients in that, Chicago, Minneapolis, or whatever. But one of his side projects things is photography. This guy is like an unbelievable photographer, Ernie Vader. And in fact, I'll put a link up. You got to go to his site and check out his photographs. And a number of his photographs now have been picked up. If you go like into, I can't remember the name of the company that does like the really nice, fancy puzzles. Ernie's pictures are now being bought by these companies to build puzzles on them. And he just got posted on National Geographic as, one of the top 10 photos of the week or something for National Geographic. But he's a sales guy at HP. This is his side project. He's got this side project that kind of shows off his creativity. And believe me, when I learned about his photography passion and saw the quality of his work, it changed my perspective about him. Hiring people when people are looking to recruit, like a board is looking to recruit a C-level executive, those kinds of things pay off in spades because they see you in a different light. You're just not this typical, person. You're multidimensional, and particularly when you can show some form of creativity that really highlights that ability to come up and develop those new kinds of things, that has a huge leg up in your ability to win the position for getting into that C-suite. So again, talking about skill 5 and 6, team building. You want to build that team now. And then number 6, you want to create those exciting side projects, something that really highlights something different about you that shows off your creativity, your ingenuity, turn you into being truly a multidimensional person. So we're going to take another quick break here. When we come back, we will pick up where we left off on skill number 7, on what are those skills needed to be a world-class CTO. So be right back. You're listening to Kill Innovations on the BizTalk Radio Network. Carpenters have their hammers and
talkradio.com.
This is Killer Innovations, a show about ideas, creativity, and how you can innovate. Welcome to the Innovator's Garage, where you learn to create your next game-changing killer innovation.
Hello, this is Phil McKinney. Welcome back to Killer Innovations. We're picking up where we left off, talking about the 9 skills needed for being a world-class Chief Technology Officer. We're picking up really on skill number 7, which is nonstop learning. A lot of people think of getting into the C-level suite as the getting into the final, you've achieved it, now you can coast. Well, guess what? In today's world, there is no coasting. There is this constant challenge and threats of competition. The market's changing, technology's changing. Government regulatory environment's changing. The world economy is changing. So this isn't a race and there's a finish line that says as soon as you cross into the C-suite, you've arrived. And in fact, this is where a lot of C-level executives have run into challenges. And that is because of once they get into making the C-suite, then they want to spend all their time protecting it. They want to protect it and not risk getting knocked off, like they made it to being on the top of the mountain and risk wanting to be knocked off. So in this case, it is, one of the key skills is that you've got to be willing to really do that constant learning. The way to do that is find a mentor. Find somebody, even when you make it into the C-level suite. C-level executives have mentors themselves, people they talk to. People in the C-level suite mentor other people in the C-level suites or mentor people low in the organization. If you don't have a mentor, find a mentor. Absolutely critically important. At the same time, you need to stay up with what's new. You need to figure out what's the latest going on in your industry, parallel industries, threats. You need to really stay on that edge. You need to constantly educate yourself. You need to read constantly. You need to stay up on what is the latest and greatest stuff. You need to do those personal side projects. And one thing that I would do, that I do myself really, is become part of makerspace, maker hubs. I'm kind of a tinkerer, hacker kind of guy. I like to find other people who are doing interesting things and then team up with them where I can contribute some skills that I have. Skill number 8, get comfortable outside your comfort zone. When you make it into the C-level suite, it's not like you have 100% of the skill sets and then you get dropped in and you just know how to do the job. You're going to be doing things that you just never thought that you were going to get involved in. One is spending a lot of time in like board meetings and management bureaucracy. Yes, you got your technical background, but you're not going to be doing a lot of tech. You've got a lot of other roles and responsibilities to do in this position, in any C-level position. And you're going to be doing things you just never knew because you didn't have any visibility to what it meant to be a CXO at a large corporation or even inside your small company that you're at now. So you just got to get comfortable that you're going to be uncomfortable, and that's just the way the role is going to be, and it never goes away because as you improve and your business expands and the organization changes, you need to be able to adapt and be flexible and take on roles that you just never thought. I took on at HP responsibility for product lines. I took responsibility for prototyping. I took on responsibility for online stores. I took on responsibilities that were way outside things that I would normally be comfortable with. But it's you get those opportunities to take on those opportunities, not because you have the expertise, but because you've shown your ability to learn fast, operate, and move. Number 9, the last skill, which I think is absolutely, a critical skill, and that is creating a gut you can trust. We all wanted to have that gut feel where we can make a call, we can make a decision, and say, oh, we took it, my gut just told me to make this decision. What we overlook is you have to train and build up your gut. You got to test your gut with smaller decisions to see whether or not your gut is well tuned to making the right call. It isn't like you just have it just because of some natural ability. So, when trusting your gut, you got to use your gut sometimes to make the call, because guess what? You're never going to have 100% of the data that you need or want in order to be able to really be able to get to and drive the decision-making process. You want more data, you're just not going to have 100% of that data all the time. So from that standpoint, you want to have a gut that you can trust. You have to get comfortable with ambiguity. You're not going to have all the information, not going to have the data. You may have fuzzy data, you may have partial data. So from that standpoint, you do want to get, you got to trust that gut. So you got to train and test that gut, so that when you get into a situation where you don't have perfect data, you just don't have perfect information, you have an ability to make the call, and you're using your gut that that you've tested and it's been and it's worked out very well for you. So again, number 9, you want to create and test your gut. So let's go back through and talk about the 9 skills. So the 9 skills are: 1, never stop building your network. Number 2, communication skills. Number 3, you want to build that personal brand. Number 4, you need to have that technical and business leadership. Number 5 is team building. Build the team now, don't wait. Number 6, create exciting side projects that really kind of highlight and show that you're a multidimensional person. You're not just really a deep geek, but you've got other areas that you can bring to the opportunity. Number 7 is all about nonstop learning. The world's not going to change. You've got to stay up with it, and it's nobody else's responsibility other than yours. Number 8, you got to get comfortable outside your comfort zone. You can't freak out. You can't have anxiety. You just got to work it. And number 9, you want to create a gut that you can trust. I'll have my show notes up on killerinnovations.com so that you can check those out, download those, and kind of score yourself where you're at on each of those 9 skills, because that's going to be absolutely critical. So again, thanks for taking the time out of your Sunday to spend the time with us here on the show. Podcast goes up on each and every Tuesday. If I could ask one favor from all of you, we've been doing the show for 12 years. It's my method of paying it forward. We do this all free of charge. It would be for you to go over to iTunes, give us a rating, give us some feedback, let us know what you think. It helps raise the visibility of the show so more people can find the show, but it's also a way for me to hear from you on what you would like to see in here. You can also drop us a note over at killerinnovations.com. This is what the show notes will be. So thank you again. We will be talking to you next week. We're here at Tuesday. You're listening to Killer Innovations on the BizTalk Radio Network.
The opinions you hear on Biz Talk Radio are those of the hosts, callers, and guests, and do not necessarily reflect those of this station, Biz Talk Radio, its management, or advertisers. The information on Biz Talk Radio does not constitute a recommendation, offer, or solicitation to buy or sell any product or service. If you have any questions about Biz Talk Radio, contact us at 817-274-1609 or at biztalkradio.com. biztalkradio.com.
Autism. 1 out of every 68 children in America are impacted across every race, ethnicity, and socioeconomic group. If you aren't directly affected, someone you know is. Today's world doesn't support those on the autism spectrum. It needs hacking for us to truly welcome those who think and create differently than ourselves. We're Hacking Autism, a nonprofit charity with a mission to hack therapy, technologies, and career opportunities that improve the personal and professional lives of people on the autism spectrum. We believe that everyone can play a role in supporting those on the autism spectrum so that they can show their unique talents and abilities in this fast-paced world. You aren't powerless in this fight. Use your gifts and talents to make a positive impact. Join us in making a difference. Go to hackingautism.org to learn more.
Carpenters have their hammers and saws, chefs have their outfitted kitchens, and musicians have their instruments. A craftsman's ability to do their job is dependent on having the right tools. So where does an innovator, someone who takes an idea and makes it real, find the right tools to do their job? Outfit your innovator's garage by visiting innovation.tools. Innovation.tools is an online store created by innovators for innovators. It's where you will find tested and proven tools to help you create that next great product or service. These tools include books, audio training, video training, brainstorming how-tos, and much, much more. And for a limited time, listeners of Killer Innovations will get 25% off on your first order by using the discount code RADIO at checkout. And 100% of our profits from your purchases will be donated to charity. So go to innovation.tools and create that next great innovation.
Rwanda is a shining example of how the global community can come together and rebuild a country after a devastating genocide. But there is still more that needs to be done. In the rural villages, students are crowded into schools with no electricity, no running water, no internet access, and limited sanitation. Will these kids be ready to continue the rebuilding of Rwanda, or will they be dependent upon others? Through education and employment, boys and girls have an equally promising future that can transform their struggling communities. For $20 a month, a child can be educated and a community strengthened. By supporting Pioneer Education Africa, a 501c3 charity, you partner with others to provide education that will prepare a generation to take on the task of self-reliance. 100% of the proceeds received go directly to the education of the children. Visit pioneereducationafrica.com to find out more.